welcome back to Rating the List, where we review, discuss, and reimagine popular movie lists objectively. We're your hosts. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Brad. And on this episode, we'll be exploring number 12 from Sports Illustrated's The Top 50 Sports Movies of All Time.
All right, and number 12 is Dogtown and Z Boys, released in 2001, directed and written by Stacy Peralta, narrated by Sean Penn, and starring Jay Adams and Tony Alva.
An exploration of the pioneering Zephyr skateboard team in Santa Monica in the 1970s.
Okay, so like how we talked about The Endless Summer.
A couple episodes.
Very voyeuristic type documentary style. This is a interview history lesson, basically, style of documentary.
Yeah.
It's also a micro history, if you will.
It is a micro history,
which I love.
Yeah.
I really liked this documentary.
I really liked it too. I had seen it a long time ago. So I was a skateboarder as a kid, and I really didn't know actually a lot about this stuff. The kind of stuff I knew about from skateboarding was kind of past these guys. It was the stuff that was kind of coming out of the late 70s and early 80s, which is when like after Stacy Peralta, who's the filmmaker here, Stacy Peralta is half of Powell Peralta, which is a really famous skateboard company. Those guys like Tony Hawk, that I mean everyone probably knows who he is, and guys like that. Those are kind of the guys that we follow. These are kind of like the guy behind the guy, like in order for Tony Hawk and those guys to run, these guys had to walk first.
Yeah.
And they were so far ahead of their time. Like
it was really interesting. What was interesting about the filmmaking of this is that they told us the story of the whole Zephyr group, and they started surfing first, right?
Yeah.
They were a surf group that surfed in Santa Monica, and during a time when Santa Monica was like old ruins of a carnival scene and very dangerous, and they all surfed in that environment and kind of grew a bond together. And their style of skateboarding mimicked surfing, where you're surfing on land. So they were, at the time when people were skateboarding, they weren't skateboarding like this. This is, they'd do street skateboarding and go down like little hills, cement hills, and it was like they're surfing on the ground.
Yeah, it was like they treated like the curves in the asphalt as waves.
Yes.
Which is really, I thought the most interesting thing about it to me was like the skateboarding just was kind of like a thing that they did when they were passing time waiting to surf.
Yeah, that's how they got started. They were like, okay, well, we'll surf or skate until we can surf again. The most interesting thing to me about this is they took a really bad environmental thing that was going on and turned it on its head. California was in a drought at this time, and they would scope out people's backyards that had pools. And that is how we got vertical skating.
Yeah.
They would go into these empty pools and start skateboarding in them. And that's how they started doing vertical drops and everything. And
I mean, even today, like if you go to a skate park, a lot of the parts of the skate park look like pools.
Oh, yeah.
They look like pools.
They do look like pools. People probably had to resurface their pools a whole lot.
I was thinking that when I was like watching them. Like, they're tearing it up. They are tearing up. Like I'm just wondering how many like those like the lights that they tend to have like at the top of the pool, like how many of those they broke, and like the edges of the pool, like how they just tore it up with the trucks and
Yeah,
or
they
riding
would
the
do it
wheels on
it was so interesting because they got so into it that they would have people scope out whose pools were empty, and they even bought gear to empty the pool if there was like a little water in there.
Yeah,
they
had like pumps and stuff.
Yeah, they had pumps and pipes and stuff to get the water out. It's just, it was really cool to see like that whole movement.
It was super punk rock.
It was punk rock.
Because like they would like, you know, they would like basically they were completely trespassing. Like
they
would go and they would be in someone's backyard, and if like, you know, they heard the cops coming or whatever, it was like they had like
someone on the lookout.
Someone on the lookout, and it was just basically like, you know, they just dropped everything and left, and were always like, it didn't seem, I didn't get the impression they ever got caught.
I don't think they did. I'm sure they did at some point.
Who knows?
I mean, they had so they had a lot of film footage of it. Like someone must have recorded what they were doing, and
there was the guy following them around.
Oh, right, the reporter, the journalist. It was great because like you would see this footage of there's like 20 people, 20 kids at this pool, like hanging out, taking turns surfing or skating, or just sitting and watching these guys do their thing. They very much grew up together, and they protected each other.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically like just like anyone who grew up like in Gen X or earlier, because like millennials and Z don't really do this anymore, but like all your neighborhood kids, like all the kids you hung out, they were just all the neighborhood kids.
They were, and they came from bad parts of town. They didn't have a good family structure. This was their family, and they made the best of what they had, and they basically made a whole movement.
It's not just that. I mean, they basically carved out a career for themselves.
Yeah.
These guys became professionals.
Yeah, they did. Every single one of them.
Every single one of them became like professionals.
Yeah.
And you know, like the popularity of what they were doing kind of led to the downfall of the team, because you know, they started all getting these like huge sponsorship deals from like all these other bigger companies, and you know, so like basically the team kind of disbanded as a result of it. I mean, you totally understand why. If you're, you know, I mean, like the kind of money that they were throwing at these like young kids, like especially back in the 70s,
and kids that didn't really have any money to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, you know, like today, the kind of money that they do talking about, I would say it would be like, you know, $1 million or more. Like equivalent of that, like, and if you're like a kid from the other side of the tracks, I mean, this is life-changing money, and it was life-changing money just to do what they were already doing.
Yeah, what they did as a pastime.
Yeah, this is stuff they would do for free, and then like all of a sudden, you're gonna pay me all this money to skateboard, which is what I would be doing anyway.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, let's do that.
What was great was they show footage from a skateboarding competition, and pre the Zephyr team, skateboarding was kind of like a trick thing. So there was guys skateboarding on their heads, or like at the edge of the board, or
doing handstands,
like doing little tricks like that, and that was what they had seen so far. Well, the Zephyr team comes on the scene and starts doing their cool surfing thing. They're surfing on the skateboard thing, and people were like, you could see it on their face in the video. They're like, what are we seeing right now?
Like, the other people were playing checkers, and these guys were playing chess.
Yeah, for sure. And it changed everything about skateboarding. Yeah. Everything. And, very interesting story. It was told very well. You had the historical narrative from Sean Penn, telling you, you know, hey, this is how it started. This is what happened.
And again, like going back to like what we were saying on the Endless Summer discussion, was not only were they just talking about skate, you learned, like, you're talking about, you know,
who these guys were,
what the economic conditions in the 1970s were, what the economic conditions specifically in Santa Monica were, and how it got to be where it was at in regards to, you know, like there was like this big amusement park that used to like bring in all these tourists, and then all of a sudden it was just gone.
It was just
And then
a
you're
ghost town.
And then you're dealing with, you know, all the oil embargo stuff in the 70s, and, you know, really, really bad drought. And there's just like all these factors, and like it puts you into a headspace where you understand the environment that these kids were growing up in, why skateboarding was so important, why they were so important to each other.
Yes.
Why their little tribe of, you know, skateboarders was so important to them.
Yeah. What I was really blown away by was a lot of these guys were skateboarding barefoot.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I was like, what?
As someone who skateboarded, I can't even imagine doing that.
But, you know, they're mimicking surfing.
I know, but still, like, oh, I can't.
I know.
Even imagine.
I don't even want to know what their toes look like.
Just like all the damage that was done. Like,
yeah.
The other thing too was like they were doing like all the hand stuff.
Yeah.
Without gloves on.
Without gloves on.
And I'm just like, if you've ever like if you've ever fallen off a skateboard going really fast,
it's like being in a car.
It is just nasty.
And they were going down hills, and
there was a couple shots. One of the guys they featured named Jay Adams, and they showed him going downhill. He was going at least 50 to 60 miles per hour on a
skateboard, a tiny skateboard,
on one of these little rinky-dinky ones.
Yeah.
And like when you're going like on a skateboard really fast and you start to get the speed wobbles, dude, you're just like hoping beyond hope that you do not fall off that thing. If you fall off that thing, you are going to
really hurt yourself.
You're gonna be in pain.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to call it lasagna road rash, because you would just get, it would just completely wipe off like a layer, you know, a couple layers of skin, and you would just have these huge gooey,
I got those from roller skating.
And like we would just used to be covered in that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or you would get, like when you were skateboarding on ramps, you would get laminate burn, which is basically like it's just basically like, you know, your skin just like, it just kind of melts.
Okay.
And it just becomes like, it's like glass. Your skin's like glass.
Gross. Anyway, so Sean Penn narrates it. He does a good job going back historically. And then you have the interviews of the Z crew. They are men and women.
Yeah, there was one woman who was on the team.
Yeah.
He was just the one.
There was two, I think.
Was there two?
There was one that they interviewed, and there was another one that I kept seeing in pictures quite a bit. But yeah, really, really cool. Interesting interviews. They had a very gang mentality. They did not want outsiders in their space at all.
And they were definitely street kids.
Yeah. They were like, they would beat you senseless if you came to either ride in the wave. So one of the big things was when they were talking about surfing in that dangerous area in Santa Monica, there would be people from out of town coming to try to surf there. And one, they didn't want them there. And two, they know that these people could get hurt and potentially hurt them.
I mean, they're like surfing like amongst like the skeletal remains of these like, you know, like amusement park rides. Like there's like,
and these big huge logs like, coming out of
like
the
steel poles and logs and stuff pointing out of the water, and they were like going in between them and stuff. I was just watching. I was all, oh my god! I can't believe they're doing that.
Yeah, it was very dangerous, and they were worried for themselves mostly.
Yeah,
they didn't want them coming in and messing up their shit. And even when they were doing the pool,
boys.
Shh. Even when they were doing their pool skating, they would if someone brought in like another person, like a friend that they didn't know, like you had to get that cleared by somebody to make sure that you could bring your friend with you. Yeah. Like they were very protective.
And they were trying to keep people from like showing up at like these like backyards and getting them in trouble and things like that.
Yeah.
This was a good one.
Really good.
I gave it a 72. Jerry gave it an 82. So list score 77.
All right. Let us know if you've seen this. I think there's a movie too about these guys.
Kind of.
Okay. Yeah. So, let us know what you think in the comments. Please like our video if you liked it, and let us know if you wanna talk to us one-on-one. Please do so at ratingthelist@gmail.com. And I totally meant email and not talking. But yeah, that's it for now. I'm Jerry.
I'm Brad.
And we're Rating the List. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.